vote.
Well, I think it's very unfortunate, and the fact that actually it was a 4-3 vote, I think, speaks to the point that this isn't a prudent decision by the State Fair Commission, and we had a chance to have a legitimate redesign of the State Fair, both physically and of the governance of the State Fair. And I think we're going to be really set back, and this 25-year lease is going to preclude us from building something really special at the fairgrounds. And so I think it's unfortunate that they could have easily taken the time to have a 9-month process or so and involve the city and the community in some strategic planning. And unfortunately, we've lost that opportunity.
From what I recall from the meeting that I covered last month, the general feeling of the people that wanted a 25-year lease was that, oh, this is an opportunity that we can't pass up, and that I know that you floated the idea of, well, let's wait a little while. They were saying that that it had to be done now. What are your thoughts about that? Did it have to be done now?
No, it did not, and we have legal opinions from our attorneys at the legislature who have said that it did not have to be done now. And issue is really two parts on that. Number one is there was a lease extension signed through 2013 in March, and that's an amendment to the current contract, and so they could have just done that. The second thing is I'm very confident the legislature would have easily approved a 1-year extension like we did 2 years ago in exchange for a legitimate RFP process.
So where do we stand now? Is it a done deal, or does it go to the legislature now?
It goes to DFA to approve, and of course the chairman of DFA just resigned over this issue. DFA has to approve it. This does not go to the legislature. They have been very crafty with the contract and made it less than 25 years. So by law, the legislature has no say in this.
Do you suspect that the governor's office wants this to be okayed, or are they being neutral about this?
I can't speak for them, but I'm sure they're in support of it because it's their appointees and so forth, and their team at Expo who've been driving the contract. And I think her folks have come out in support of it before. So there's been lots of articles on the different connections between all the players involved.
But there were Democrats and Republicans in the meeting last month that were hardly smiling upon what's going on over at the state fairgrounds in this racino.
That's correct. Well, it's just a process that I don't think anyone is proud of. They opened an RFP for 30 days and then never shared any of the contents of the results, never asked for community input or city input or legislator input, and then voted on a rushed 4-3 vote a couple of days before Thanksgiving on a 25-year land deal. And so, I think that process speaks for itself.
And also, I mean, there was a lot of people at the meeting last month, especially from the rural districts, that were talking about the very idea that they don't subscribe to the ethos of a state fair. They don't think there is one anymore. I would think that after this, there might be more of those rural people that are saying, well, this is another example of bad management, and we don't feel like we have any kind of allegiance to this thing.
Well, I think this definitely hurts the chances of a state fair in the long term. And it gives people yet another reason to turn their back on our state fair. And it's something that, even options like leasing it to Bernalillo County and just making it a county fair are now going to be basically impossible because you have, 60 acres in the middle of the place tied up that are leased to a different entity. So, we really shot ourselves in the foot in terms of creating a statewide asset on this one.
The state Republican Party accused you of having Laguna Pueblo as a client of yours. What's the story there? Is there a story?
They did. I feel like they were really scraping. I don't know why a political party would actually get involved in something like this anyway, but they're not a client of mine, so nor do any of my clients have any even remotely vested interest in the whole thing. Who does care about this is my constituents. And, I represent the area of the fairgrounds, and I have now gone against 2 governors on this issue, asking for a redesign of the state fairgrounds and some investment there. And, both times that the Downs seem to has had a lot more sway on the 4th floor. And so for me, I've been consistent on this issue throughout. And, I felt that was a real that was a real stretch, sort of a cheap shot. I'm not sure what really drove them to be so concerned that they'd have to do that.
And then on the other hand, the Democrats have hammered Governor Martinez for the $70,000 contribution. Although I think there was $54,000 that went to Diane Dennis too. So does that kind of make it a wash?
Well, again, representing my constituents, it doesn't, because I know my constituents aren't giving any governor, $50,000. So I think regardless of whether it was Dennis or, we had the same stance with Richardson, who I think received like $300,000. So, again, this is about, influence and money in politics, which tends to be bipartisan. So it's not about one party or the other. I think both have been proven equally guilty of this.